Hold up, I ain't trying to stump, man, but the Yeezys jumped over the jump, man. I be in and out of arenas like I'm Scottie Pippen. Left my elbow in the pot, a la Vince Carter.
Bitch, you wasn't with me shooting in the gym?
James Harden with the range on me, nigga, way back. Coach, they won't knock me off my pivot, get it.
Been flowing stupid since Vince Carter was on some through the legs arm and a hoop shit.
And you can live through anything if magic made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, now you do.
Yes, sir. We are back. Round of applause for yourselves. We got a few things on the docket for today. De'Aaron Fox just going off about not making the All-Star game and not even caring about it. This does not help the league market that game. And his comments add on to the perception that game is not even worthy of watching. Also, is it time for Jeanie Buss and the Laker fan base to check out of the whole LeBron James experience? A lot of passive aggressive posts on social media, and now he's at a point where he doesn't even care. He's letting it fly during his post-game interviews. When will the Lakers base realize that their logo is much larger than LeBron? And right now, as the NBA currently is in an exclusive negotiating window with TNT and ESPN, another major timely announcement has been made that kind of slowly takes away their leverage of just asking for more money. And last but not least, we'll get into Volume 2. Is your franchise dealing with a bubble star? Starring the Houston Rockets and Jalen Green, as a lot of rumors are mounting up about the second overall pick potentially being shipped out. Now, the All-Star selections every single year tend to reflect the way the league is marketed, not really who's having an impact on the league. And ironic enough, the Sacramento Kings, even though sitting in 5th place this season, and Sabonis having a hell of a year, shooting over 60%, averaging 19 points a game, 8 assists, and 13 rebounds. And also De'Aaron Fox, averaging 27 points a game, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. They pretty much got snubbed, even though they're having an impact on the league currently. But that doesn't come by surprise. It's the situation every single season. But De'Aaron Fox made some comments about not making the All-Star selection and not caring about the game. And once again, the league is at a very interesting and pivotal point right now where they're trying to sell the game to their TV partners as they negotiate brand new deals. So the regular season is stressed as something being important with that 65 game rule in place, and also with the creation of the not only in-season tournament, but of the play-in. But let's take a look at what De'Aaron Fox had to say.
I don't really care about being an all-star. Plus, Indiana is cold, Fox told the Sacramento Bee. When asked to elaborate on his unique stance, Fox said, "I don't really have an answer for that. I can't control the way I feel about things."
Now, just like the regular season, we're having a player right here emphasize not caring about the All-Star game, which is pretty much already a narrative, as the 2023 All-Star game previously was one of the worst defensive efforts we've ever seen in the All-Star game. It was absolute trash. I mean, Jason Tatum even getting the MVP award, he looked a little awkward even accepting it, because that was definitely not a game. And it leaves you to wonder if the owners are letting the players know, hey, don't go all out during these All-Star games because you have a $300 million contract coming your way, or simply just put, we're not going to risk our franchise just for this silly old game. But even though the All-Star game in recent years has lost its relevance, it's still an important piece of inventory that the league provides, especially to TNT. When they get those billions of dollars from TNT, the All-Star game is a pivotal piece of that. That's why we see guys like Jalen Brown this season making an appearance in a dunk contest, potentially, or the league asking for certain stars to make an appearance in the three-point shooting contest or the skills challenge. But the voting always goes towards the way the league is marketed and not who actually has an impact. Because when you look at the voting, even though the Lakers are sitting in 9th place, they still have an all-star starter, and Anthony Davis was still voted in as a reserve. And Karl Anthony Towns, of course, got voted in. I think he should be there due to the fact that the T-Wolves, they pretty much have had a major impact on that Western Conference up until this point. And you can see the same thing reflected in the Eastern Conference with Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum getting 2 slots on the All-Star team. But it is what it is. Just seeing the way things are playing out now, it's going to be a very hard selling point for the NBA to possibly maybe get the dunk contest on a streaming service, or maybe the 3-point challenge, or maybe the celebrity game. It's just the whole appeal of All-Star Weekend. It's losing its flair. And it could have been a nice selling point to possibly just get one of those nights streamed just on Amazon Prime. They could have got a bag off of that, similar to the NFL. But there's definitely a lot of work for them to do to get this thing relevant again. Now, with the Lakers midway through the season, over 50 games in, finding themselves barely having their heads above water at 500, Jeanie Buss is going to begin to start asking herself, when is it time to check out of this LeBron James experience? Because Laker fans understand that LeBron James, being as big as the star that he is in the NBA, he's not bigger than their logo, and they could make a well-debatable argument that they've had at least 5 players in their franchise greater than him. They can at least make that argument. And there's very few NBA franchises that can do that. But with that said, this LeBron James experience is nearing its end. And as we've seen historically, especially with Mr. James, the end is never pretty. And we're starting to see things fall through the cracks, aka players being disgruntled, LeBron James sending subliminal messages. All these things don't really reflect the Laker culture. But bringing this back to on the court issues, LeBron James is growing frustrated with Rob Pelinka and the Lakers front office are not making moves fast enough, even though he did make the request of getting Russell Westbrook just to have that situation backfire on his ass. But as of this moment right now, he's growing frustrated, and it's a little bit beyond this tweet, and it's starting to spill over in his interviews.
Like you said, you guys went 4-2 on the Strip. The next time you guys will play will be after the trade deadline. Do you feel like, as a team, you guys have proven or shown why you guys should continue to, I guess, invest in this current group?
This is what we have, so there's nothing else to talk about.
Once again, just beyond the hourglass tweet, LeBron James against the Knicks in a nationally televised game. In the post-game interviews, he knew what he was doing. He threw on a Knicks towel. He's not necessarily saying he's going to join the Knicks, but he's sending shots to the Laker front office that this whole Lakers experience could be nearing its end. And speaking of this whole Laker experience, we have to put LeBron James joining them into proper perspective, because majority of the seasons outside of the championship season have pretty much been a failure. From the 2018-2019 season, LeBron James and the Lakers won 37 games and lost 45. And the following season, that was a championship season, they won 52 and lost 19 games. And it's pretty much been at 500 beyond that. As in 2020 to 2021, they won 42 games and lost 30. Then they won 33 games and lost 49. And last season, they won 43 games and lost 39, which was a season of illusions because they entered into the playoffs as a play-in team. Even though they got the victory and continued on as a 7th seed, their competition going forward was very weak. They went up against the Memphis Grizzlies, who weren't really as focused due to the incidents of Ja Morant and his off-the-court issues. Then they faced the Golden State Warriors, who in reality, because of Andrew Wiggins being out for most of that season, was a shell of themselves. And the Lakers were able to exploit not only their size, them not having a really lack of athleticism, as they won that series 4-2. Then they ran into the real competition, which is the Denver Nuggets. And this is a series where people don't really talk about. You really see where the Lakers really fell in the hierarchy of just going up against competitive teams, as they were fully swept. That's why I said the last season for the Lakers was pretty much a season of illusions. They had some of the weakest competition going into that Western Conference Finals, even though coming into the playoffs as a team that had to participate in the play-in. But the frustration this season is not only brewing with LeBron, but with his teammates. We've seen Christian Wood not being happy about his role, especially with Hayes being announced as a starter over him when AD was out. And also D'Angelo Russell not fully understanding the role that the Lakers want him to play in, which is being more of a spot-up shooter. And D'Angelo Russell actually spoke on this.
I get into my flow state in the pick and roll when it comes to the game. So if I can tap into pick and rolls and recognize how they guard me, it allows me to control the game because I can get to what I know is working or might not work. It's like playing the game within the game, but I'm in my space. I ain't just catching and shooting. Now I'm in y'all space. If I miss, Y'all took me out the game. Y'all just took me out the game. If I'm missing, if that's all I'm doing is catching and shooting. But if I'm getting to do what I know I can do, which honestly, I feel like that's when I'm at my best, when I just have a roller and a shooter. Somehow, some way around me, just a roller and a shooter. You put whatever else in the other two spots.
See, what D'Angelo Russell doesn't understand right there is that LeBron James is going to be the person that he wants to be in that position. He's going to need a roller and a shooter. And you're supposed to be the shooter. AD's possibly the roller or just other guys on the team, but you're always going to be the spot-up shooter. And this has been a long time thing going with LeBron James ever since he's been in Miami. He's always needed shooters around him. That's how Pat Riley was able to build that team. But just like in Miami or whether he was in Cleveland, the last few days with LeBron James being on your team, you start to see teammates not only check out, but LeBron sends subliminals and he begins to carve this path that separates him from his teammates. And it leads to him going through the exit door. So Jeanie Buss is definitely going to have to take control of her franchise back because LeBron James at this point in his career is not really leading you to a championship. And AD has been proven that he's not that guy that's willing to put everything on his back and be that 1A and make LeBron James, because of his age, be that 1B guy. AD can't do that from night in, night out. He can do that only in spurts. But once again, LeBron James is not larger than the Lakers logo. And the Lakers are a franchise who can actually look at LeBron James and say, as great as you are, we've had actually a few players that we can make a sensible argument that have been better than you. And there's very few franchises in the NBA that can actually say that. Once again, LeBron James is not larger than the Lakers logo. So things are heating up as the NBA is trying to get a brand new TV deal. And right now they're in an exclusive negotiating window with Warner Brothers, who basically own TNT, and also Disney, which of course is ESPN. But during this exclusive negotiating window, a lot of things started coming to the forefront, and the timing of these things are very interesting. For one, Amazon came out of nowhere and bailed out Diamond Sports, who basically owned the local TV rights to about 15 NBA teams. Amazon's trying to come in, throw money at the RSNs, not only to bail them out of their financial troubles, but they also want to just invest millions into the company going forward. And they also want them to get rid of the Bally's logo or whatever logo they have during the sports broadcast and actually stream their stuff on Prime Video. So they sort of kind of in a way backdoored the NBA and are dealing directly with Diamond Sports in the bankruptcy courts, which could result in Amazon pretty much getting a deal with the NBA without getting a deal with the NBA. It solves one problem for the league, in which they're dealing with fans with blackouts, but on the other hand, they were using Amazon as leverage coming into the negotiating table with TNT and with ESPN to get more money. But all these things are pending in the bankruptcy court, and while all this is going on, another timely announcement of all ESPN properties going forward next fall, along with the Big Ten Network, TNT, TBS, and other properties of Discovery and Disney are going to actually team up and launch their own streaming service. Once again, the NBA was expecting to come to the negotiating table to not only leverage Amazon, other streaming companies like Apple or perhaps Netflix to get more money, but they were also going to have these other networks bid on each other. And now a lot of them are collaborating to launch their own streaming service, along with ESPN making the announcement that they're going to have their own direct-to-consumer streaming service in 2025. So things are getting very interesting as it's looking like ESPN, TNT, and Fox Sports are all collaborating in order to solve the issue of sports fans having to subscribe to so many different streaming networks. They're sort of collaborating, and a lot of consolidation is definitely needed in the streaming industry because right now this is way too many services. People are stretched thin. There's way too many things to subscribe to, and there's not enough time to watch all these things. But this is a game changer. Now there will be a way for sports fans to access a lot of these major sports networks without going through an entertainment package through cable. And it is also an acknowledgement that the media business and the media landscape overall is just changing. And just the days of sports rights being inflated and this huge bubble that's been going on these past couple of years, I believe this is going to be the last time these prices will be negotiated not towards actual demand. You see, the thing about streaming and going direct to consumer, you could actually see what your real demand is instead of hiding behind the old business model and the business of bundling through cable. We've seen this happen with CNN, where in cable, of course, they're doing their thing, they're making money, they're running ads, but when they try to get outside of that box and see what their real demand is when they went direct to consumer with their app, it pretty much completely fell off and they had to cut it off financially after just 1 month. So basically, they're just a legacy channel with no real demand outside of their initial core that was acquired in the early days of cable. So with major properties like ESPN, NBC, Peacock, we're seeing all these brand new streaming services. A lot of these legacy media channels are now going to start to see their real demand when they go direct to consumer. And if the demand isn't there, going forward, it's going to be hard to offer the NBA, the NFL. Well, the NFL right now, they're winning. They're going to have to offer them money. But the NHL and other sports leagues that kind of benefited off of the bundle packages. This is where things kind of get real interesting going forward, just looking ahead, where these sports leagues outside of the NFL are going to have to actually have some real demand. And the money they're going to get offered, it's going to be dependent on how much these legacy networks are actually making off of direct to consumer. It's not going to be the old, we're going to give you multiple billions just because we can charge people through a cable bundle that's not even watching ESPN an extra $40 a month. Those days of free, easy money are over. But the CEO of Walt Disney, Bob Iger, had a few statements in regarding the situation.
The launch of this new streaming sports service is a significant moment for Disney and ESPN, a major win for sports fans and an important step forward for the media business. This means the full suite of ESPN channels will be available to consumers alongside the sports programming of other industry leaders as part of a differentiated sports-centric service. I'm grateful to Jimmy Pitaro and the team at ESPN, who are at the forefront of innovating on behalf of consumers to create new offerings with more choice and greater value.
This is definitely a major step forward for the sports media landscape, because now they're going to untether themselves to those cable bundle packages, which in a way frees them from offering these sports entities inflated prices for rights to broadcast them. But the CEO of Warner Brothers also expressed his gratitude on moving forward as the landscape continues to shift.
At Warner Brothers Discovery, our ambition is always to connect our leading content and brands with as many viewers as possible. And this exciting joint venture and the unparalleled combination of marquee sports rights and access to the greatest sporting events in the world allows us to do just that. This new sports service exemplifies our ability as an industry to drive innovation and provide consumers with more choice, enjoyment, and value, and we're thrilled to deliver it to sports fans.
Now with Fox Sports, ESPN, Turner, and the Big Ten Network actually collaborating, it leaves you to wonder if this consolidation in a way kind of gives each company a floor to hit, because in a way now, let's say if ESPN somehow lost the broadcasting rights to the NBA, would they benefit if Turner actually was the sole bidder and acquired the full NBA sports rights? Because now in a way they're in business, they would be bundled up with Turner regardless, which gives them a monthly reoccurring revenue of how much, who knows, they're gonna charge. It could be 40, 50 bucks a month. But in a way, this could possibly stop these major legacy networks from outbidding each other to acquire the NBA, the NHL, etc. But there is a double-edged sword to this. Because on the consumer side, yeah, it's nice to finally have most of our sports networks, especially on a national level, not on a local level, but on a national level, to be able to watch TNT games, Fox Sports games, maybe a couple international soccer matches, the Big Ten Network. But when you still look at the fact that these sports packages cover a lot, but not everything, that means the consumer still has to go out and purchase other streaming services. So when those things start to bundle up, it's going to add up to more than $72. And if it comes around that price point, they might as well go grab something that kind of bundles up everything all at once, like YouTube TV that gives them access to NBA and NFL. So we'll see what they set the price point at, because it can't be too expensive with everything not really covered on the consumer side. All their needs are not fully met. But going back to this consolidation, all the networks, even though they're going to be working as a team on one side, they're still going to be bidding for these sports rights as individual companies. And it's still early on all this, but it looks like them collaborating, it just gives them a nice little floor in case one entity is doing worse than the other. At least they took the bundling business model from cable and they applied it to a direct-to-consumer product as almost a floor. Well, like I said before, they still will be operating and bidding on sports rights as individual companies still. And for those of you watching the video version, as you can see, the NFL has the most partners. They have YouTube, Fox, NBC, CBS, ESPN, and Amazon. And the NBA right now only has ESPN and TNT. So this consolidation in a way helps the NBA out because they don't have to worry about their fans running to find where the games are. If it's on Amazon or if it's on this streaming service and that streaming service, the consolidation helps them out on that end. But as you can see, they only have 2 partners, and 2 of those partners are the ones that are going to be collaborating now. See, this is where I say things get interesting with the timing of these announcements. Like I said earlier in the segment, right now, ESPN and TNT is in an exclusive negotiating window with the NBA. They get first dibs on trying to construct a new TV deal with the league. So in the middle of that window, now we're seeing that they're going to collaborate, even though they're 2 different entities. And also at the same time, Amazon Prime, which the NBA was trying to leverage against ABC and TNT, they sort of in a way backdoored the NBA and try to bail out their local TV networks that covered about 15 NBA teams. They're trying to bail out Bally's and at the same time have those 15 teams be streamed on Amazon Prime Video. And they're going through all this through the bankruptcy courts. So they don't really necessarily have to deal with the NBA. The bankruptcy court and judge is going to do what's best to get Diamond Sports caught up with all their creditors. And Amazon might be one of the best solutions to make that happen. But the NBA does have an ace in their pocket, in which during the bankruptcy with Diamond Sports, they were able to renegotiate having all those local teams that they had on there. The NBA is going to get their rights right back. So the league does have a little bit of leverage on that. But going back to this chart here, we see MLB. They have 4 partners: Fox, TBS, ESPN, and Apple. So once again, with the consolidation, ESPN, TBS, and Fox will be on their own streaming network starting in the fall of 2024. And in 2025, ESPN will launch their own streaming service. So the NHL is looking like they're going to lose some leverage also, as just like the NBA, ESPN and TNT are their only partners. So for those of you watching the video version, as you can see, the Big Ten actually has deals with Paramount, aka CBS, Peacock, which is NBC, and also they're going to be visible on that consolidation streaming service between ESPN, Fox, and Warner Brothers. So these are definitely interesting times. I expect the NBA to still get a large TV deal for the current negotiations. They're probably going to add a couple of new partners. Who knows? Maybe Netflix, maybe Apple might hop in last minute, which I don't really expect them to. Or who knows? Maybe Amazon might buy a few exclusive playing games or in-season tournament games. They can throw the NBA one of those deals that they gave the NFL for their wildcard games. But this move by the local networks is definitely an acknowledgement that the media business model has definitely changed in the days of free, easy money through the bundling packages, which got ESPN a boatload of money, and they were able to buy sports rights to the NFL and NBA for large amounts of money. Those days are pretty much coming to an end. And now on the streaming side, after these current TV deals get done, there's going to have to be a proof of concept. There's going to have to be a real demand for these products. The days of the NBA having load management, guys sitting out without a care in the world, that could happen because back in those times, the NBA was eating well off of the ESPN subscription model through cable. Now that those days are over, they're actually going to have to put a good product on the floor. The NFL right now is pretty much king. Their product has proof of concept. Even through exclusive streaming deals, they're still hitting things out the ballpark with their wild card games being the most streamed live event ever. Things keep going up and up for the NFL, so they definitely have proof of concept. And for the next TV negotiating deal, which could be 8 to 10 years out, if the NBA does not improve their product, I doubt the direct-to-consumer business model is going to work well with them continuing to receive billions of dollars annually. That's going to make it a really tough sell, and there's going to be a lot of competition. There might have to be more consolidation, as the NBA has League Pass, ESPN is going to be doing their own service along with bundling up their services with other companies. And then some of those companies like Peacock, Amazon, Paramount, Netflix, there's going to be way too many subscriptions. At some point, there's going to have to be more consolidation in the sports media landscape. But we'll see how ESPN rolls out their own streaming service in 2025. And this is where the NBA does have leverage to get a lot of money out of ESPN and Disney, because they're definitely going to need a lot of programming in order to launch that streaming network. But this is definitely a step in the right direction, because your grandma should be paying an extra $40, $50 on her cable bill just to have ESPN when we all know she doesn't watch it. That was the easy money that ESPN was eating off of, and thus the other sports leagues were also eating off that money. So it is what it is. Now this will be a continuation of my series, Is Your Franchise Dealing with a Bubble Star? And this will be volume 2 starring Jalen Green, as the Houston Rockets have done their fan base justice this season, as they begin to act on the position that they find themselves way ahead of their rebuild. That's due to the progression of guys like Şengün and Jabari Smith. And with the acquisitions of Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks, all these players combined have put pressure on justifying the type of shots that Jalen Green takes. These guys, they're scoring at a much higher efficiency clip. And it's going to get harder and harder to justify not only the minutes Jalen Green gets out there, but the number of shots he gets to take. Now, the premise behind me naming this series, Are You a Bubble Star?, is back in 2020 when the NBA had continued their season in the bubble. The perfect unique circumstances happened all at once that resulted in a number of players like TJ Warren, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Damian Lillard to average a lot higher point levels than they normally would. Thus, the term Mickey Mouse MVP came about. And I always remember thinking that circumstance just did not happen in a bubble. It happens every season in the NBA. And this season, we're seeing it turn out for Zach LaVine. And in this segment right here, we're seeing it play out with Jalen Green. But not the only recent acquisitions of Dillon Brooks, VanVleet, along with the rapid progression of Şengün and Jabari Parker have contributed to this team's overall culture change, but it's also the unique circumstances that happened to land Ime Udoka on the Houston Rockets. So all these things combined have accelerated the Rockets in a culture shift that has affected Jalen Green, because the first 2 seasons he had in Houston is pretty much out of sight, out of mind. And him playing that kind of AAU freestyle basketball with no pressure to win now has to fit into a team concept that this season has been producing wins. And I don't blame Jalen Green. It's not like Houston made a mistake drafting him as a 2nd overall pick, but he is a product of AAU culture, that overtime / elite / ball is life culture that's been festering around the amateur circuit for years now, where at times it looks like a popularity contest. Players sort of develop the wrong mentality coming up from a young age. And there's a lot of outside influences in those leagues, such as the Nike, Under Armour / Adidas tournaments, where the level of competition is pretty much filtered to players who are on teams that are sponsored by these companies. An unintended consequence of AAU has been just players actually just showcasing their game. There's no emphasis in players playing around a team concept. You got the most athletic guys flying in, playing for 2 different teams at times in one tournament, and coaches really concerned about just winning so they can maintain their sponsorship with either Nike, Adidas, etc. So a lot of this does have a trickle-down effect to the product that you see comes into the NBA from year to year. And I'm not even going to add the social media popularity element to this, but Jalen is definitely a product of this. And him coming into year 3, we're seeing him get benched in certain 4th quarter situations. And also Houston is kind of suffering from having too many cooks in the kitchen. We've seen the rise of Cam Whitmore this season. Jae'Sean Tate has proved this season to be a vital piece coming off the bench, especially defensively, as he can guard 1 through 5. The Rockets recently also traded for Steven Adams, who's pretty much locked in for next season. And you could begin to see some of the pieces that are being crafted around this team to actually get them to move up that Western Conference in the middle of the pack, as some of the more veteran teams within that conference start to age out. But just understanding Jalen's archetype, a guy who's been pretty much given the green light to just shoot and dunk since he's been a teenager, and him having his first 2 years in the league just playing that freestyle ball, It just adds on to that false sense of security. And that's what a lot of the AAU culture has kind of festered among players. We see it play out even within the veterans in the league, but even the great legend Kobe Bryant spoke on this. And that culture around AAU is one of the reasons why he started the Mamba camp.
Kobe, you've been pretty critical of the AAU system and the way American players are brought up.
Not pretty critical, I mean, extremely critical. I hate it. Because it doesn't teach our players how to play the right way, how to think the game, how to play in combinations of threes. And I think everything is it's a reward system. I think coaches who are teaching the game are getting rewarded one fashion or another, and it's just a showcase.
Do you feel like
it's absolutely horrible for the game.
The young guys that are coming up, do you feel like the game is kind of stiff, whereas when your guys were more skilled?
Yeah, but I think that was just by luck in the generation that I grew up in. You know what I mean? Because like my generation is when the AAU basketball really started becoming shit. You know, and I got lucky because I grew up in Europe.
Right.
And, everything there was still fundamental, so I learned all the basics. And I think we're doing a tremendous disservice to our young basketball players right now. That's something that definitely needs to be fixed, and it's going to be one of the things that I definitely focus on.
Now, Kobe said when he was coming up, that's when AAU basketball just started becoming shit. And fortunate for Kobe, he grew up in Europe until the age of 14. So the system out there has players working on their game for months at a time. And then they might play one game. And then they'll go back and work on their passing for a few weeks. Then work on their post-ups. And then work on their shooting. They may work on certain skill sets for a whole month and then have another game a month later. But guys like LeBron James was when that AAU culture started to get heightened due to his high profile out of high school. And just the media landscape overall at the time when cable TV and internet began expanding more and more. So the media landscape got bigger and bigger. But Stan Van Gundy spoke on this at a coaching clinic, which took place around the same time LeBron James just left the AAU circuit and got into the NBA. And judging from the Miami Heat shirt Stan Van Gundy's wearing, I would say this took place anywhere from 2004 to 2006. You guys check it out.
You're important in a lot of ways. First of all, from a basketball sense, for just their skill development and stuff, that's going to start at a very young age and is going to be determined at a very young age. And quite frankly, if you look around, we're failing pretty badly in this country as a whole in teaching people basketball skills. And you all notice it that watch the NBA, because there's a huge difference in just the skill level of the players coming from Europe and what we have here in terms of their ability to pass the ball and shoot the ball. We can't even produce enough people who can do those things here that we got to go across and try to find people who can do them. We're not developing skills here. One of the reasons is, we are much more interested in playing games and winning and losing at a young age than we are in skill development. So I would say this to all of the youth coaches here, even more than the high school coaches, is you have to make a decision if you want to teach the kids that you're coaching how to play basketball, or if you just want to win games, because there's a big difference. I last spring coached both my 12-year-old daughter and my 9-year-old son for 2 months in a YMCA league and had a group of kids. And I got to see every approach, And I would say to you, of the probably 18 teams that I saw just in that limited time, there were maybe 2 or 3 coaches that were really trying to teach skills, and everybody else was just trying to win a game. Leave your best players on the court as long as you can. Play zone defense, for God's sakes. It was beyond me. In a 9-year-old league, play zone defense, for the entire game. Obviously, don't ever let your biggest kids dribble the ball. Make sure they always give it to a guard who is usually your son, And so they can run up the court. And then you wonder why at the high school level we got so many kids who can't play, and we never have a 6'5", 6'6", 6'8" kid who can dribble, pass, and shoot, because at the young age, you tell him to go stand under the basket and get the rebound and give it to somebody else. So the first thing I would say to you, you have a decision to make. Do you want to help build basketball players, or do you want to just tell everybody you won your youth league?
And that was Stan complaining. As we all know, Stan loves to bark. But that was him complaining in an era before social media. Before Twitter blew up, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, it was bad back then. And just going to his point with the coaches playing zone defense, that shows you how lazy they are. Because most kids at that time, they're not strong enough to go through 2 defenders. So it shows you the laziness in the coaches. But again, I'm just putting into proper perspective on the way Jalen Green came up and a lot of the false reassurances he got coming up as a preteen to teenager to him getting all the way up into the league, which by the time the NBA grabbed him up and had him play for the G League Ignite, it was already too late. It's hard to break all those habits that he had from a youth. He would have been better off had they grabbed him and gave him a more balanced approach from a young age up. But with all these trade rumors surrounding Jalen Green, the Houston Rockets fan base should be proud of their franchise, because a lot of other NBA teams, sometimes they cannot get past the fact that a guy's putting up decent numbers as far as scoring, but it's not at an efficient clip. And they just stay stuck on how they can market him to sell tickets to fans. Meanwhile, he's hurting the team. So kudos to the Houston Rockets for implementing a new culture. And it actually involves around winning. And there's really nothing wrong with Jalen Green, as he's a young player still developing. But this is a very rare occurrence where you see a franchise that goes from playing freestyle ball and rebuilding, and now just like that, they're all of a sudden in a better position to actually compete, while at the same time the conference that they play in has veteran teams that are aging out. So it is what it is. The Rockets are in a very good position. They got a lot of chefs in the kitchen though. They're probably gonna have to bundle a few guys, do almost like a 2-for-1, and perhaps give guys like Whitmore more space to operate in. Maybe get a 2-way guard who can defend and shoot. And with the coach they have, they should have success going forward. But the Rockets fan base should be proud, because the other side of this coin could be them ending up like the Chicago Bulls. That's all I have for today. Until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.